So it turns out that I reviewed a whole lot more earphones and headphones that I thought I initially did last year. I think the total tally works out to around 30 or 35 headphones and earphones combined, not including the few headphones that I listened to at any of the Headphone Connect events. So I'm not going to go into detail about each of these earphones. If you do want to know about them in depth in my typical style, I'll leave the links down below so you can watch their absolute in-depth reviews. But what I am going to do in this episode is talk about the headphones and earphones that really connected with me, because a lot of them are just products that you connect with on a superficial level. But I did seem to have a connect with some of them, which made me want to own them myself. So of all the equipment that I did review this year, I'm going to leave a drop-down list over here so you can see if you're interested in watching those in-depth reviews. But let me start with the first few that did leave a good impression. Firstly, I'd like to mention 3 sets of earphones that were sent over by supporters and subscribers of the channel who are now good friends. The Sennheiser CX400BT was sent by Omkar, who's a long-time friend. He really pushed me to start this channel. I did like the Sennheisers that he sent across for review, but I think by the time I reviewed them, they were a bit dated, but they are an enjoyable set to listen to. Moving on to the other 2 sets of earphones that actually introduced me to the IEM game. Wilson, another supporter and friend of the channel, sent me his KZ ZS10 Pro and Moondrop Arias. I had never really considered going into the hi-fi world with IEMs. I've always preferred over-the-ear headphones, but he kind of pushed me to try these out, and I'm happy that he did, because if I didn't really do that, I wouldn't be as interested in the IEM game right now, and it's really opened up my mind to this kind of audio. The IEM world is different compared to the TWS genre of audio, because you can step into the audiophile world at an affordable price. Now, 5 or 10 years ago, you couldn't even consider doing something like this where you'd get that level of imaging and detail in these kind of products. Today, it makes it that much easier to do this because they're super affordable now. And even I've been doing a whole lot of IEM reviews lately, thanks to the guys at HeadphoneZone as well. I did have a very brief introduction to Sony's WF-1000XM4 and their WF-C500. In fact, both did leave me quite happy with the way they sounded, and I would have loved to have spent a lot more time with those products, but I only managed to go to their showroom and try it out over there, as you'll see in those videos. They're just first impressions because I didn't get the time I wanted with those. Getting my hands on Sony products hasn't been as easy as I thought it would be, but I will keep trying to get my hands on them. Moving on to some of the budget earphones that I tested. I tested the Realme Buds Air 3, the OPPO Enco Air 2 Pro, and the OnePlus Buds Z2. Now, obviously the Z2 is a little more expensive, but the other two, the Realme and the OPPO, perform very well, in fact, when it comes to the sound. But I found myself preferring the OPPO because it has a more natural sound, whereas the Realme sounds a little bit metallic. And the thing is, it's a very nice package. It looks good, it's well built, it's got active noise cancelling, but Realme really does drop the ball with that set of earphones, because it's got all the features it has, and then they've got one of the worst sounding microphones, or should I say the whole call algorithm just falls flat compared to anybody else. In fact, I think I did a comparison where I compared 6 separate earphones, and of the lot, the Realme just fell flat. In fact, that's a big reason why I usually prefer the OPPO Enco Air 2 Pro, because not only does it sound a little more natural than the Realme, but you know whoever you're calling will be able to hear you clearly on the other side of the call. The Buds Z2 are an interesting set of earphones, but the issue with them is I had a problem with mine straight out of the box. I thought maybe a firmware update would fix this, or a soft reset through the case would have sorted it out, but it never did. So I think I did the in-depth review, first impressions, as well as a comparison, until I said there are no updates coming out, I'd better go to OnePlus. And I did go to OnePlus and show them the issue, because there was a hissing sound that would kick in every time the active noise cancelling was on, and it took a little while for them to figure out that this was in fact a genuine issue, and only once they acknowledged that did they do it. In fact, I made a separate video on that, and a whole lot of people have also had the same issue, and sadly some people have had some resistance from some OnePlus service centers to replace them. But I think it's pretty much died down now, because people are of course still buying the Z2, and I'm not getting as many comments about this issue in particular. The JBL 230NC was the very first JBL product that I have reviewed on my channel, and I'm happy to say that I did, because I had an aversion to JBL for the longest time, because at least back in the day, whenever I heard any JBL products, they were all about having accentuated bass. It was just nothing but boominess. So I didn't want to review JBLs, but I did get a lot of requests from viewers saying that they wanted me to test these. So I did in fact pick these up, and they were not disappointing. In fact, I didn't think they'd be able to stand up to the Nothing Ear ones that I had picked up the previous year. But they just about surpass the Nothing Ear One when it comes to overall quality and tonality of its sound delivery, because it's a little bit richer where it needs to be. It's a little bit tighter in the bass. It's a little more defined overall. So it's so much more enjoyable compared to the Nothing Ear Ones. And a big plus point is, of course, the battery life on that compared to the Ear Ones. So I found myself pushing the Nothing Ear Ones to one side and using the 230NC a little more often. But the 230NC's time to shine was very limited, because shortly after that I had a lot of viewers asking me to review the LG Tone FP5. Now, I don't think it was a very new product when I was getting these requests, but I decided to bite the bullet because this had a maximum retail price of 20,000 rupees, and it was being sold at the time when I was looking at it for 4,999. Unbelievable, right? So I just went ahead and bought those, and I was quite surprised to see how they sounded. And one thing that led me towards wanting to buy them was that apparently these were tuned by none other than the guys at Meridian. So in fact, I found in my first impressions review that it wasn't too impressive when it came to the sound straight out of the box. It was falling very flat. I didn't like it at all, and I genuinely felt that that money I spent on it was quite a waste until you go and activate the Meridian tuning. So now I always keep it on the natural setting. I think it sounds the best over there. I mean, it does suddenly come alive when you put on the Meridian tuning in the EQ settings. It sounds fuller, it's more detailed. The bass can be a little too on the heavy side, because I was using it just the other day and I felt it was too exaggerated because I've been testing a whole lot of IEMs lately. But it does have a little bit of heaviness and bloat to it to a certain extent, but it is a very enjoyable set of earphones. And honestly, if you can get it today for below 10 or even below 9,000 rupees, I think it's really worth it, and I'd highly recommend the FP5 as well. And then cue a company I had never heard of before. It's a company called Costar. So they got in touch with me over email many months ago saying that they wanted to send me a demo unit of their first product that they were launching in the market. Now, being a new company, I wasn't expecting too much from them, but they sent me a product called the Diamond T300. It's a very budget set of wireless earphones. In fact, I think they were selling them for about 1,700 or 1,800 rupees at the time of launch. I'm not too sure if it's gone up right now, but at that price, you don't expect quality, be it the build or the sound. Now, but what caught me off guard is the fact that these have touch controls. They also have active noise cancelling. And when it comes to the sound front, they don't sound bad at all, because usually what a lot of people do with more budget earphones is they crank up the highs to a certain extent where it hurts the ear, but it gives the illusion of being more detailed in its overall delivery, which is not the case. It's just crank trebles. It's not detail in the least. So these guys have tuned it in such a way where it does sound a little more natural. Yes, it is a little flat sounding, but it does have a warmer tone to it. So it's not trying to be something it's not. It's very comfortable in its own skin, and I think for that cost, if you're looking for something you just want to use on a commute, even if you don't plan on using it for music or consuming media, be it video, audio, on your way to office, and you just want the active noise cancelling and something to just do its work, for 17 or 1,800 bucks, this thing's an absolute steal. And I think Costar has started pushing out more products. So I think they've got a lot more to come in the future. I'd like to see how this company grows in the future. And then HeadphoneZone sent me a whole bunch of IEMs. They sent me about 8 IEMs and 1 dongle DAC. I'll leave the list of what they gave over here. This was my first proper foray into experiencing IEMs properly, because Wilson did send me the Moondrop Arias and the KZ-ZS10 Pro, but I heard them one at a time, and I think they were a few weeks or months apart. Whereas this, with these specific IEMs, I was able to shift between each set of earphones and see what different nuances each one had. Now, despite them being in a similar price range, each of them had a different flavor. I wouldn't say each one is better than the other, because I don't think that's how it works. If you're planning on having a collection of IEMs in that specific budget, it's not that each one will be better than the other in a certain way. It'll just emphasize certain different frequencies differently. It'll have slightly different characteristics, and that's how all these IEMs actually functioned. And one thing that I found really amazing was how these managed to manage their detail recovery, because I think the most affordable set of IEMs was around 1800 or 1700 rupees, maybe 2000. I could be wrong. The way these things imaged, the way you could hear specific nuances, 5 or 10 years ago, it was not possible. You had to spend a minimum of, I'd say, maybe 14 to 20,000 to get a good set of headphones, wired headphones, if you wanted to get into the audiophile game. Now you can just spend about 2000 rupees on a set of good IEMs and spend a little more towards a nice dongle DAC, and you can start the audiophile game fairly easily with this. But my absolute favorite of the lot was the ZSN Pro X. I think it does very well. In fact, I think it sells well. But there was something about those earphones that just spoke to me. It was something I was able to connect with beyond a superficial review. It wasn't just about, okay, this is how it sounds and so on. It's still today a set that I want to pick up because it did move me. HeadphoneZone also did send me the 7Hz SalNote Zero. Now, I wasn't going into that review not expecting to be impressed. Because I understood what the IEM game has to offer in that price range. And the 7Hz did not disappoint. It was, well, it did the detailed recovery like it had to, but it did have more presence in the bass compared to some of the other IEMs I listened to. And it kind of is like a perfect all-rounder, because a lot of the other IEMs I heard did, well, I mean, there was adequate bass, but it wasn't as accentuated, or it wasn't as energetic in that specific range, which is why I think a lot of people might be liking the 7Hz SalNotes over some other IEMs. But the 7Hz, as good as they were, I still somehow didn't connect to them like I connected to the ZSN Pro X. I was lucky enough to get 2 demo units from Soundpeats. So one of them was the Air 3 Pro, and one of them was the Soundpeats Live. And a lot of people, when I was first starting my channel, were asking me or requesting me to test or review Soundpeats. I think they were very easily available on Amazon at the time. Right now, I don't think they're as easily available, but there are a lot of loyalists towards this company because they do have a very nice sound signature. For a set of TWS earphones, both of their earphones did have more of a warm tone to them. They gave me the sense of listening to an old cassette tape, because there's just this warmth in the overall tonality and delivery in the audio. So I do like what they have to offer. In fact, I think they've been working on a lot more earphones recently, so I hope I can get my hands on them, because I think they're working on the combination of dynamic drivers with armature drivers in a wireless form. So that I would really like to check in a wireless form. I was thrilled to receive a demo unit from Beyerdynamic, and this was the DT700 Pro X. Sadly, these weren't the ones that I wanted to review. I wanted to review the 900 Pro X because I heard these very briefly at the HeadphoneZone Connect event. In fact, the very first time I went to a HeadphoneZone Connect event, I demoed these. It's not the ideal setting because there's a lot of noise, but there was something about these headphones that spoke to me, because everything it did, the way it delivered its highs, lows, mids, overall detail recoveries, the staging, the imaging, even in an open environment with so many people speaking, I really did want to get my hands on them to listen to and test in a controlled environment like in my studio. They didn't have a demo unit at the time, or the demo unit was a bit faulty. So they instead sent me the 700. Now, the 700 is a good set of headphones. I would recommend highly to somebody who's getting into audio editing. If they do want to be able to edit their tracks in a nice way, they are a transparent set of headphones, which will definitely aid your overall mixes. But I personally wouldn't want to buy those because I don't see myself really listening to music with those, although I can see a lot of people appreciating them when it comes to music listening. The Nothing Ear Stick enters this list because the Nothing Ear Stick was made available a few months ago, and I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence with these set of earphones. They didn't move me, they didn't make me feel great. It's not a set of earphones I want to reach to and use every day. I think it's because of how Nothing has handled the whole situation. A lot of people are pretty bummed out because I think they've discontinued the Nothing Ear One, and the stick is not a replacement for the Ear One because it's an open design, and the Nothing Ear One was a closed design with a ear tip. So it doesn't make sense to phase out your first generation product. It was a good product, in fact. There are a lot of people who like the Ear One. In fact, I still have my Ear Ones which I use, and I was thinking of using for certain reviews or comparisons, but now since it's not relevant, I don't see that making sense. That review will make absolutely no sense. The Nothing Ear Ones are a big question mark for a lot of people. They work well, and I suppose it's targeted at a specific audience. There are a lot of people who don't like having in-ear earphones, or even for that matter, the design like the Nothing Ear One. It's not an in-ear, but it just sits on within the concha, and the tip just seals your ear canal, so there's no sound bleed in or out. So the Nothing Ear One was not really offensive that way. It wasn't uncomfortable for me, and I used to find in-ear earphones or these earphones uncomfortable, but I've grown to like them. They are comfortable, but having an open design now just feels like it feels insecure. It feels like it's going to fall out if you sneeze. It feels like it's going to fall out if you go down the stairs, but in my case, it never has. But I suppose it's very subjective depending on what your ear shape is like. Soundcore sent me a very interesting demo set of earphones, which was the Soundcore Sleep A10. I've never really thought much about the sleep genre of equipment because I think Bose came out with it and it's super niche. There aren't too many people who are even considering doing this. I suppose if you live in a metro and you want to cut out the sound from outside, it is super niche, but after testing it for a few weeks, I found it to be quite interesting because they've not gone the extra mile and done the whole active noise cancelling thing. They've in fact come up with a very interesting ear tip design. It's sort of dual layered. So thanks to that dual layer, it helps isolate noises that much better. And in fact, it's one of the sleekest earbuds I've seen, and I'm quite surprised that it's able to last a whole night on one charge because it's quite tiny. But apart from being a sleep aid, it surprisingly sounds very nice. I think it's got the smallest driver that I've heard this year. I think it had a 5mm driver, which is tiny, but it has a very nice sound to it. It's got good detail. The only issue with it is it doesn't amp too well because it's not meant to. It's supposed to help lull you to sleep. So even at low volumes, it does sound nice. It is a very interesting set of sleep buds. If you are into that and you want something to help you rest at night and calm you down, it's worthwhile giving that review a look. And then my last few set of reviews at the end of the year was a whole bunch of Yamaha products. I reviewed the Yamaha E3B, the E5B, the E7B, ES5A, EP-E70A and YH-E700A. The one thing that stuck with me with Yamaha is when it comes to all their products, whether you buy their absolute entry range earphones or their absolutely highest range ones, they all have a feature called listening care, which in fact is being done in a way to try and help you boosting the volume too high, because if you don't look after your hearing at a young age, you're bound to lose it, and it's something that can't be corrected. It's nice to see that they've tried to implement a more rounded sound at a lower volume just to ensure that you're not cranking it up too high. But when it comes to all 6 of these products, there was only one that really spoke to me like the other 2 I had mentioned, that being the Yamaha TW-E7B. To begin with, it didn't leave me too impressed when I listened to them straight out of the box. So usually what I do, in fact I didn't mention this in my review, but sometimes some earphones can feel very restricted when you unbox them, and some earphones don't burn in very well, or they don't burn in at all. The E7B I put on a burn in, and I can honestly say it opened up significantly. To begin with, I didn't think that there was too much detail and depth coming out of these, but after maybe a 25-hour burn-in cycle, these things suddenly decided to try and be audiophile grade wireless earphones. Because it's funny I say that because those only support SBC and AAC. Yes, they don't support high res, but they've got all the characteristics of it. The way it wants to do your detail recovery. They are surprisingly transparent if you shift between a good recording and a bad recording. They make it very clear whether you are listening to one of those. And why I think it does that is for a small 10mm driver, Yamaha has actually taken the effort to make a voice coil that is almost as large as that. So I think the voice coil is almost 80% of the 10mm. So you've got a lot more moving force. So it's bound to not lag or slouch when it comes to its overall sound delivery. And it's just that characteristic that makes it so much more enjoyable when you're listening to music. So yes, you aren't able to listen to high-res music off of it, but it's the perfect set of earphones, I'd say, for an audiophile if they want to go for a walk in the evening or go shopping and you just want to lock out the world. Its active noise cancelling may not be the best in the industry, but the way it sounds it's I think the perfect portable audiophile gear. If you were to ask me which few I'd really want to own myself and add to my collection over there, I'd say for sure the KZ ZSN Pro X. I think they go for around 2,000 rupees now. It's super value for money. I think they're quite superb that way. You can buy those off of HeadphoneZone. And then I would also love to own the Beyerdynamic DT900 Pro X. In fact, I've got the DT990 here. It's an older set, but it's not any slouch for today's standards. But the 900 Pro X I feel is an evolution of that set of headphones. It's not an upgrade really, but Beyerdynamic has built this one slightly differently. It's tuned slightly differently, and it's so much more comfortable, honestly. I love the ear pads that they've put on the 900 Pro X and 700 Pro X for that matter. And of course, the Yamaha E7B is another set that I'd love to own, because just overall the way it performed is the perfect travel companion, whether you're on a flight or you're going on a cycle ride, or you're going for a walk in the evening. It's the perfect companion for the audiophile. It's not bloated, it's not boosted like some other earphones are. Now, these are the three main ones that I would highly recommend. One that is really super value for money, if you can get it at a good price, I think is the LG FP5, because I think a lot of people will like its sound signature. Yes, from an audiophile perspective, it can be a bit bloated in the bass, but it is tight enough to not feel too loose. If you're comparing it to audiophile gear, it is a nice set to own. It is enjoyable, especially if you want to use it for workouts. It's small and compact. It fits in the ear very well. It's a very nice design overall, and of course, it's been tuned by Meridian, so they know what they're doing. They're not going to really do a bad tuning with any set of earphones. So there you have it. I hope this video has given you some sort of value in understanding some of these products a bit better. I do plan on expanding to other brands, because a lot of my viewers are asking me to try out certain other brands. So I do plan on doing that this year. I'll figure out how to do it, see who can send me products. Otherwise, I have to stick to picking them up myself. And of course, if you do want to support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice. Oh, and if you do want to see a video that I really poured my heart and soul into, I made a new kind of format video that I don't normally do with the BSR UA70, which is an old record changer, an automatic record changer. I really enjoyed making that video. So if you would like to see it and you're interested in records and you like that content, let me know in the comments over there in that video if you would like more content like that. And I'll see you in the next one.